Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we're discussing the funeral games of the Imperial Fists Chapter. Spoiler warning to begin, as the events we're discussing today are from the Warhammer 40k novel Malodrax by author Ben Counter. As always, I really recommend you read the stories for yourself first without spoilers, as that's the best way to enjoy the lore for yourself. But with that said, let's waste no time and just jump straight in. Now, throughout this week, we've taken a look and discussed the forming of the Last Wall Protocol, one of the biggest events in Imperial Fist history, a time when the chapter literally faced extinction. However, to end the week, I wanted to discuss something that is a real insight into the traditions of the chapter, something that spans the passage of time. And so today we're discussing the funeral games of the Imperial Fists, how the chapter surprisingly honours their dead. And we got to see this within the novel Malodrax, a story that actually shows Darnath Lysander's legendary capture by the forces of chaos, and his ultimate escape. And that's actually something I want to discuss in our next week's special, the Heroes of the Imperium Week, which will be coming up soon. As for a character who's been around for a long time, Lysander really doesn't get the attention he ought to. However, I digress. Within Malodrax, the forces of the Imperial Fists return to the said named world, where Lysander was taken captive. And there's a moment whilst on campaign that they stop to honour their dead, those that have fallen whilst on the campaign. They find a sunken area of ground from the plain around them, sheltering them from view from afar, with one member of each squad tasked to keep watch. And once there, they laid out the 3 fallen warriors, where Chaplain Lycaon begins the rites to the fallen. "Let us commend Brother Fornis to the legacy of Rogaldorn," said Lycaon over the body. As a chaplain, he had given these rites hundreds of times before, standing over the body of a fallen Imperial Fist. "There is no death so final that it can rob us of our place in the eternal war against the enemy. There is no fate so grave that it erases our duty. Brother Fornis was among the finest shots in the First Company, and his mind was as sharp as that of any soldier. He did his duty and honoured his Primarch and his Emperor. Nothing more need be said of a member of the Adeptus Astartes. He has left this battlefield, but there will be another." Now, considering the nature of Rogaldorn, you may be a little surprised to see his sons taking the time to go through all of this upon an enemy world, within a very active campaign. This is a world fallen to chaos, no less. And I'd agree with that in a sense. It's hard to imagine Rogal pausing an active campaign for anything. However, he did care deeply for the service and sacrifice his sons performed for him, for his father, and he would absolutely want to see them honoured when they fell. I'm just not sure he'd do it here, especially upon an enemy world. However, the quote that really just epitomed everything about the nature of the chapter was the line, "He did his duty and honoured his Primarch and his Emperor. Nothing more need be said." I can't think of a better line to describe a son of Rogaldorn, even in a funeral rite, just matter of fact, telling it like it is. Now, after this brief ceremony, the gene seed is removed from the fallen, and the bodies are stowed upon the land speeder, to hopefully be returned to the chapter after the campaign. Without an apothecary within the force, the gene seed responsibility lies with the Tech Marine, Obviously of paramount importance that it gets back to the Phalanx, that the line of Dawn can continue. And so I guess the Tech Marine is probably the next most logical choice to bear it, playing more of a support role to his brothers. But it's then that, surprisingly, rather than moving on, the task force holds a ritual known as the Funeral Games. Choose your best, demanded Chaplain Lycaon when the dead were stowed away. The Funeral Games, in a major campaign, or when there was more time to observe them, might see every manner of martial competition. Marksmanship, athletics, a dozen forms of dueling, and more. Here, when they had to be concluded in less than an hour before the strike force moved on again, there was only time for one such competition. And yet it was ill luck not to observe it, for the dead Imperial Fists had themselves observed many times the funeral rites of their own fallen brothers. So, in actual fact, there's a great deal of honouring the dead that is performed by the chapter. A great deal of importance that is placed on it. Here we see if they had more time, or a grander task force among them, it would almost be a virtual Astartes Olympics of a kind. Events of marksmanship, athletics, a dozen forms of dueling and more. And I actually think this shows a great, rarely seen side of the chapter. They get stereotyped a lot as your boring, tactical, defense-minded Marines. But here we see there's far more to that. To them. That yes, they honour their fallen, but also how it feels almost more a celebration. Not mourning their fallen, but celebrating their service, their duty that they gave to their Primarch and the Emperor. And I really like seeing that side of the chapter, revealing more of the chapter's inner nature and character, but also keeping it very much within the expectations of that character too. It's not something that feels completely out of place. It's a surprise to see it, but something done very much within their nature. As those who have fallen honoured those before them, so too must their brothers honour them now. From Squad Gorvet's brother Antinius stepped forward, handing his heavy flamer to the squad mate beside him. He stripped off the shoulder guards, breastplate, arm guards and gauntlets of his armour, leaving him unarmoured from the waist up. Antinius's cropped red hair contrasted with his pale skin, the surgical scars of his many augmentations still looking pink and raw. Of Lycaon's veterans, brother Givnar stepped up. He was the largest Imperial Fist there, and the knotted muscles of his arms and chest were covered in incised kill markings in the style of some of the chapter's oldest veterans. Each campaign he had fought was picked out there in scar tissue. Sergeant Kaderick represented his squad. He had kneeled before the chaplains of the Imperial Fists and sworn never to back down from an honourable combat, echoing the oaths taken by the first champions of Rogel Dawn, and those still taken by the rare individuals chosen to champion the Emperor on the battlefield. Such an oath was a bold statement even for a Space Marine, and the chaplains told parables of those whose oaths had been learned and twisted by the heretical and corrupt, compelling brave champions of the Imperial Fists to fight impossible odds. To take the oath meant that the principles of courage and honour were more important than petty concerns like survival. The final competitor was Brother Gefor, his gene seed duties done, representing Tech Marine Co., Helestus and Lysander, those members of the strike force who were not members of one of its 3 squads. So, unable to give a grand funeral games and determined to still ensure it's done, the task force holds a simple dueling tournament, and we see here how it's undertaken, one champion from each squad present, and one champion to represent those not assigned to a squad, such as the Tech Marines, etc. It's a non-lethal, unarmed contest, akin to a wrestling match really. The winner decided when he gets his opponent into an unescapable hold, forcing them to submit, the winners progressing to the next contest. And here it's pretty short and sweet, only 3 matchups due to their numbers. And it's all done in high spirits, the winner dedicating his victory to the fallen, thanking them for looking over the chapter, as is the expectation. So again, it all really feels immersed in that sense of honour and celebration. It's a way of the chapter celebrating that fallen warrior spirit. As soon as the final contest is over, they pack up and move on, the chaplain declaring the fallen honoured. So it's clearly a tradition within the chapter that they take very importantly, that they have to ensure is done, unless the circumstances obviously make it impossible. But even here, upon that Chaos World, they have made sure to stop for at least an hour to make sure it's done. And it's a simple thing, but it was something I really wanted to discuss today, as it's the perfect way of highlighting the hidden depth of the chapter's character. How they are more than the simple defenders and builders of fortresses that they so often get seen as. How they are honoured warriors of the Imperium, who value the brotherhood they share with their kin. And while they may not be the flashy, out there characters of the Sons of Russ, even the Blood Angels, there is just as much depth within the Sons of Dawn as any chapter out there. You just need to take the time to look for it. But as always everyone, what do you think? Are you surprised to see the Sons of Rogel Dawn honouring their dead in such a way? That they honour the dead by holding funeral games, and that it's more a celebration of the fallen than mourning? Are you maybe a little surprised to see that they even pause upon campaign to make sure it's done? Is that something you would never expect to see the Imperial Fists of all chapters do? Or do you actually think it reveals the true heart of the chapter? That they are, as I say, far more than the stereotyped fortress builders. That there is more to the nature of the chapter within. As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too? But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.